Good afternoon. This is Randy Caban, and this is the Travelin Moses show. Right here, we have our guest, Ruth Bermudez, who in her former life was a travel agent, and Roland Lopez, who has traveled around the world. So here, we're going to discuss the aspects of traveling. For instance, we just heard that a major airline canceled 3,000 flights in their hub in Atlanta, Georgia, because of storms. Now, they already were booked for the holidays, Easter and Passover, and there's no way they could do makeup flights. So in this show, we're going to discuss all aspects of travel that we can. Of course, it's a broad subject. We're going to start with Ms. Ruth Bermudez. Can you tell me the state of travel these days, Ruth?
The state of travel. Well, I think people are still traveling despite the fact that things have been happening in the world. I think there's certain hot spots that people are not traveling to, that often. For example, I hate to say it, but, Paris, you got to be worried, unfortunately. Beautiful city. And now recently with the terrorist act in London. And there have been other places, of course. So those places, people I think are being a little more careful. But the state of travel, I got news for you. People are still traveling, and they're traveling like crazy. And there's been now, what's happening now is that there's a lot of budget airlines that are flying from New York to Europe. There's a whole bunch of them that have come up recently. I mean, I can name a couple, I think. There's one that's called Norwegian Air. I mean, I know about this because I just got an email about that they had flights for $99 to Iceland and $169 to London and Edinburgh and actually, Dublin, places that I've been thinking about going to lately. So, people are still traveling. They're being a little bit more cautious, but,
Now let's go
it's here to stay.
Let's go to Roland Lopez for a response. What do you think, Mr. Lopez, on Mrs. Bermudez's comment?
I agree with her. All the terrorist happenings are not going to deter people from traveling because it's a big world and you just have to be careful. I had a problem once in Mexico City where the plane, something had happened and it put a damper on my traveling plans. But I'd rather be safe than be in an airplane that you're not sure if there's a bomb aboard or if, mechanically speaking, something could happen. But it's not going to stop a lot of people. Certainly, I wouldn't go to a lot of places like Ms. Bermudez said. I would definitely go to places where I'm a little bit more safe. And, that's not going to stop people. Traveling is something that people want to do. Explore different places and cultures.
Just to follow up on what he said, I just have a quick comment. In fact, what's been happening now is that, cruising has always been big, but it's gotten bigger than ever. Why?
Exactly.
Because people are a little frightened to go into some of the airports in Europe.
You're right.
So, the cruise, what's better than a cruise ship? You got the safety of the ship.
Exactly.
But you still get to see the country. So that's why you're seeing all of these big, huge mega ships that are coming out like one after the other,
Exactly. That's a new phenomenon.
Including the river cruises, which are pretty big now also.
Now, I have a
Right,
problem.
Europe.
That's all big budget items when you travel like that. Travel agency, big expense. The cruises are quite expensive, And I'm trying to figure out how to travel cheaper or the lowest possible way. And I'd like to know what your thoughts on. I just read something, how to travel cheaper is don't speak English. Learn the local language. Maybe a little bit of what have you, French or Spanish or Italian or Arabic, what have you. Just learn a little bit about the lingo to travel cheaper because as soon as you speak English, the price goes up.
Absolutely. If you're living in a country, the hotel rate is different. If you live there, I'm not saying in every country, but in most countries, it'll be less money for the person that lives there than if we're coming from New York or from whatever, LA or Chicago, it's going to be more money.
Definitely.
It's really, just like if you go to Europe and you want to get on, or let's say South America, and you're in Ecuador and you want to go to the Galapagos, we bought our package from New York. There were people that bought the package in Quito, in Ecuador. It was half the price.
Wow.
So that's things that people don't usually kind of think about, including us.
Right.
But yeah, you can do that, hold off. I mean, also has a lot to do with your schedule, if you have enough time to.
Cut.
He goes with travel. I think that people, in fact, when they travel, they become lax. I know that, my background in law enforcement, 20 years as a New York City police officer and finally a detective in homicide, gave me a lot of experience. But when you travel, you seem to forget about certain things. And I will point some out now. When you travel, you're supposed to, when you walk around, at least when I travel, I don't travel in groups. Usually I travel alone or with a partner. Don't go into places that are off the main streets, the harbor, where the boats are at. And also don't buy stuff that you don't know. And when you drink stuff, when you're in a place you don't know, make sure that they open. It may seem a little strange, but you have to be careful. And also when you're packing, make sure that you pack just what you need. Certain things will be taken away at the airport.
Ruth, what are your opinions on this matter of security? Have you in your travels had your clients or yourself come across some security issues?
Well, once Roland started speaking about some of these things, something did come up. In all my travels, and that I've traveled a lot, I only had one negative experience, and I was with 2 other women. And talk about safety, it had to do with exchange of money, okay? Money exchange. What happened was, and I'll just try and be quick, it was in Costa Rica, San Jose. We had arrived the night before. We wanted to get some money. We had heard that the best rate of exchange was in the town, that you can just get it. There was a place there. So we get there, and we're about to go into this jewelry store that does great money exchange, and these 3 guys come up to us, and they said, "Oh, you guys are looking to exchange some money?" And we all said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Well, we have it here." So then all of a sudden, we said, "Okay, so how much is the rate?" Then he took out his some handcuffs and a badge, and he said, "You're under arrest, and you girls have to come with us." I'm going back about 25 years, so make a long story short, it was extremely scary because we found out and we realized it. I mean, I knew, as did my girlfriends who were Ada, remember Ada?
Ada.
And her niece. We realized that these guys were not cops.
Okay.
And they were trying to get us into their car. So lesson learned, don't ever exchange money in the street, from people that you don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, probably 30 years, a little more naive. But thank God somebody came by. There was a man in a uniform, and my girlfriend said he's trying to, do what and he kind of intervened, and the guy started running.
Ruth, can you tell our audience what other hotspots that you think are places to go today in 2017?
Well, some of the hot spots are Sri Lanka in Asia, Myanmar, which used to be called Burma.
Right.
I think Malaysia, certain areas are a little bit more happening, although again, because of terrorism, you have to be a little bit careful. I was thinking of, Kuala Lumpur with the world's tallest building.
Right.
The places
Petronas
like
Towers.
that.
Right.
What else?
The Petronas Towers.
Exact, that's the
right,
name, right.
yeah.
And, hot spots, of course, one of the hottest spots now, and it's been around for a while, and I was lucky enough that I went, is the, what I call the Adriatic Riviera. Croatia, Dubrovnik, Split, Montenegro, the islands there off the coast, Hvar. That is gorgeous, The prices are right. The food is great. It's a mixture of Italian with their whatever their other cuisine is. All I know is I had the most delicious risottos there when I was in Croatia. And the people are friendly, and it's a very laid back, nice place. So that's one of my favorite places now.
Roland, Mr. Lopez, how about yourself? Do you have any spots that you think are really happening today or in the recent past?
Yes, I do. I'm partial to Spain. I remember spending 2 months in Europe. I had a Euro pass, and I traveled to Tangier, Morocco, which I thought was exotic, Rabat.
Yes.
But it was dangerous. I had an experience that I won't go into. Thank God I came out of that all right. But I feel that Spain, La Costa Brava, by the border of Portbou, it's a place that a lot of people don't visit. And it has not only the food, the music, the culture. I would also say that Costa del Sol, people don't mention it that much, Malaga. So I would, I'm partial to the mother country, to Spain.
Thank you very much. And we'll be back after these messages. Mr. Lopez, when you traveled to Morocco, you mentioned there were some security issues or problems. Of course, that's an Arabic-speaking country, but seems to be friendly toward with the West. Can you elaborate a little bit on what anything could happen, or
Okay.
with your experience?
The year was about 1970, 71, and I had been, as I previously stated, 2 months in Europe with a knapsack, a beard. That really was a great experience for me, and so I took the boat from Algeciras, Spain, to Tangier, Morocco. And what I didn't know is that I didn't get my booster shots from the United States, so that upon my return, trying to get into Spain, they told me I would have to spend an extra week in Tangier, Morocco, because I would have to take a second set of booster shots.
Oh, I guess at that time.
It was tough. And I told them definitely not. I had to be in New York, that I was a police officer. So the captain of the ferry that goes across from Tangier, Morocco to Algeciras, he said, I'm going to allow it. But that wasn't the whole experience. I remember that I stayed at this hotel in the Medina, which is not the outskirts where the English stay. And there was a knock on the door.
Wow.
And I had bought some switchblades in Heidelberg's, Germany. And when I opened the door, there were two Moroccans with jalabas, and one guy had like a knife. It turns out that I had my switchblade, and I yelled at them, and they ran. And I was by myself.
Wow.
So then I said, you know what? I made a mistake. I'm learning from this. From now on, I do not do this and stay where I don't, in the Medina. So the next day, that's when I approached the captain, and to go back to Spain. So when you travel, you have to be very careful. And I couldn't eat the food because I'm not, they were eating. They didn't eat meat, dairy. So I had problems with the food. I was drinking a lot of tea.
But you made it.
Yeah, I made it.
But lesson learned, you
Yeah,
got to be
yeah.
careful where you stay.
Lopez, I mentioned some security concerns when you traveled to Venezuela. Can you elaborate on what has happened in those travels?
Again, the year must have been about 1973, and I traveled with a friend of mine who was also one of my partners, Roger. And we went from the hotel at the time that we were staying at the Hilton to the poor side before you go to Margarita Island. I think they call it Macuto. And Roger met this beautiful lady at the pool. And they engaged in conversation, and he told me, listen, she invited me up to her room, and he did go. So I'm having my pina colada. And then when he told me the story, when they disrobed, she wanted money. He says, but I thought that you liked me. She says, I like you, but I want money. And he refused to give her money.
No.
So she had a pimp. So it
Oui.
turned out that he had to give this lady money. If not, they would have cut him up, you know.
Oh my God.
So then when he came down, we met these American guys from the States, and one of them had said that one of his friends went with a prostitute and something like that happened, and they cut him so bad that even with the plastic surgery, the man never looked the same. So when you travel and you have these ideas of love and romance, which we all do, be careful, because you just meet somebody, you don't know who they are, and you end up in a terrible situation. And it happens with women too. They
Absolutely.
meet, so be very careful, because you never know what could happen.
Ruth, you mentioned in Colombia you traveled with a group of your girlfriends, and you had a story about Cartagena. Can you tell us
Oh boy, yeah,
what are
yeah.
the dynamics of that story?
Yeah, Cartagena is a beautiful, beautiful town, and in fact, it reminded me, beautiful town in Colombia. It reminded me of San Juan, Puerto Rico, because it has
It's
El
beautiful,
Morro.
yeah.
Beautiful little street. But anyway, make a long story short, yeah, I had just graduated from Columbia, the graduate school, and a couple of my girlfriends, it was about 4 of us, we went, and we said, well, where should we go? We said, we're going to go to Columbia. Make a long story short, we were out having a great time, and we were partying. This is many years ago, as you can imagine. And one of the girls met a very nice, attractive guy, and it was appropriate, very well mannered, and he wanted to take not only her, but all of us to the best places in Cartagena and the surrounding area in a limousine. So we practically that whole weekend partied 3-4 nights, one place after, and I mean, this was like, we were like, my goodness, this guy must have a lot of money. So make a long story short, she kept seeing him, and he was very nice, and he even came to New York. And what happened later on was that she found out that he was one of the biggest drug dealers in Cartagena, Colombia. And actually what he had been doing in taking us to all those places, now that she puts the pieces together, was probably making some connections.
He had the
You
money.
know,
He had the money.
I mean, but when you're very young and naive, you don't think about these things. So you have to, women that are out there, single, you got to be careful who you
Wow.
hang with. You got to kind of look a little bit more beyond.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Roland, you have some interesting stories about when you went to Puerto Rico. Once again, you have to talk about these security issues. Can you give us some idea of what happened there?
Okay, the year was 1964, and it was my first trip to Puerto Rico, and I went with 2 of my friends from the 2A precinct, and it was their first time. And we met these young ladies that they stayed next to our room. We had a couple of drinks. I ended up going out with one of them. The other 2 just didn't gravitate towards my partners, so they went on their own. So later on after dinner, these girls came into the hotel, and they looked like they were excited, and they told us a story. They had met these guys that were driving in a car, invited them to El Yunque. They accepted, didn't know these guys, and while they're up in the Yunque, these guys wanted to have sex. These girls kind of fought them off, and these guys threw them out of the car. And later on, they were able to get back to El Condado by hitching a ride.
They got
So
lucky.
when you go out there, men or women, you can't just meet somebody at the spur of the moment, because you're risking your life.
Comments on what Roland just related?
No, I think
with
that
us?
it's really important. That's a very, very important fact, because what happens when we're on vacation is that we become less inhibited, I think.
Yeah.
Everyone's out to have a good time. You want to have. So your judgment sometimes can become a little impaired, even when you're not drinking.
Exactly.
So those poor girls, I mean, who knows? Probably in New York, they wouldn't
They
have
wouldn't
just
have done that,
gone
yeah.
off with a guy that says, I'm
Exactly.
going to take you to Bear Mountain in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Because if it's almost comparable when you think about
Right.
it. So yeah, that's what I want to say, that sometimes we have to kind of regroup when we're away and say, wait, is this a good decision?
Exactly.
know, can it-
Always be on your guard.
Yes, unfortunately, but
No,
yeah.
but it's the
you have
truth.
to.
Lopez, Roland, if I may, what other aspects of security that you think, especially, people looking for romance and they travels, well, what should they be really concerned about too?
What?
Because we all want that romantic aspect of travel.
We all want to have that beautiful feeling of romance when you travel. But I had a buddy who had two experiences. He was short in stature, but he considered himself a Romeo. So in Spain, he met this woman at a bar. She slipped a Mickey Finn in his drink, and he was able to go up with her to her apartment. While he's at the apartment, he fell to the floor and he was dizzy, and then two men appeared. And she said, take his money, but please don't kill him. So they said, yeah, we're going to kill him. And he said it was surreal what was
my
happening.
God.
So they took him and they dumped him in the alley. And he woke up in the morning and he had a cut to his right arm, not deep. And the same thing happened in Florida, a doubleheader, where he was aggressive with this female, and some of her male friends beat him up and they threw him out. So that means that you have to learn your lesson. If you don't know a female that good, be careful. Like I said, be careful. Watch what they give you if you go to an apartment. And be careful. Romance can cost you injuries
Life.
and your life.
Wow, that's a
Ruth, do you have any comments on the romantic aspects of travel?
Well, like I said before, you have to use your judgment with men. And again, when you're away, you tend to have your guard down. So, in speaking to my friends my friends all tend to be travelers also. There's things that almost happen. And I'm sure there's things that did happen.
Exactly.
And and especially, out there for the younger people, the younger girls and the guys, because
The
we
guys.
can see it's not only with young, with women. And you don't have to be young either, because things happen even when you're older with men when you travel. So yeah, you just have to, be a little bit careful, but
Exactly.
be careful. Always make sure that you know where that drink came from.
And open, you guys, what are the most memorable experiences of travel that you've had that you think that we should discuss? Also, places you may want to go in the future and for what reason? We'll start with Ruth.
Adventurous places that I've been to, or things that have been very exciting. Okay, let me think. There's been so many, to be honest with you. I'm thinking, I know that I was in some desert, and I just realized where it was just now. And we were riding a boogie, one of those boogie cars?
A dune buggy.
Dune buggy,
Right,
buggy.
right.
In this desert that it was beautiful colors, and that was when I was in Dubai.
Oh, Dubai.
Dubai. Yeah, and then that was a lot of fun. It was more fun than I thought. I also let's see, there were giraffes. Were there giraffes? Yeah, I remember something about being on top of a giraffe. I think it was a giraffe. Yeah, I have pictures of this.
That's good.
That
that's
was
good.
a lot of fun. And let's see, memorable and adventurous was my safari when I was in the south of Africa, in Cape Town. About a couple of hours from there, there's a beautiful safari. Forgot the name of the park, but it's a pretty well-known one in Cape Town. And waking up at the crack of dawn at 4 or 5 in the morning to see all the animals, it was just, surreal.
And Roland, any memorable experiences that you
Yes, off
recall?
the top of my head, in the mid-'60s, I drove with 3 other friends to Acapulco, Mexico from New York City. We did the trip in 4.5 days. And the way we worked it out was that the driver would have a co-pilot and 2 of our friends would sleep and we would rotate. And one incident, I think it was in the Ozarks, we stopped off for breakfast, and it seems like something out of that movie with the motorcycles, Easy Rider. I remember I'm light-skinned complexion. My other friend was light-skinned, but one of them, he was Filipino. So when we go to have breakfast, and I asked the lady when she took the order, I want an English muffin buttered with a little jelly. She said, "What? An English what?" And I said, "Okay, just give me toast." And these guys that were there and their trucks had shotguns, and I told my friends, I think it's time to leave. And we did leave, okay? During that trip, when we hit Acapulco at night, it was something I'll never forget. It was like a mothership with the lights, and we went down. It was beautiful.
Yes.
And that was during the 70s. I mean, the 60s. That was a different Acapulco. Then we had a little kid that we would pay him a couple of dollars a day, American dollars, and he would take us around. So he took us to this house of ill repute on a mountain. And I never saw this. About 25 women by the bar. And he said you can have
Acapulco?
in Acapulco. So then my friend says, "Why don't we have a menage a trois?" And I said, well, and it ended up we couldn't even do that. But it was a very nice trip, and I would love to do it again. But the years have been many, and we stopped off to eat. We didn't bathe well. That when I got back to the house, my mother said, "You have to take a shower, man." And I had a beard. That was good. I really enjoyed that trip. That was a phenomenal trip,
nice.
you
Very
know.
nice.
And another one in Copenhagen that, I was stranded in Marstrand, which is about 200 miles from Copenhagen, a nude beach, and I couldn't get back because the buses weren't running. So I'm under a tree smoking these French gouloirs, I think, the blue box. They have like a gypsy. And I was saying, what am I doing here? For a little bit of pleasure, I have suffered beyond measure. So that was it.
Good adventure.